My daughter called me an embarrassment, and took her stepfather to meet her fiancé's family Reddit stories. One sentence erased 26 years of showing up, sacrifice, and silence. What happened next turned a quiet humiliation into a public reckoning no one expected. Hi, I'm Jace, 50, and last month my daughter told me I was an embarrassment, right before taking my ex-wife and her husband to meet her fiancé's family instead of me. And the moment she said it, quiet, irritated, like she couldn't believe she had to explain it, I felt something in my chest loosen. Not break. Loosen. Like a knot that has been pulled tight for 20 years finally giving up. It happened on a Monday. Cold Illinois November, the kind where the sky looks like it's been washed with dishwater. I just finished rewiring an old storefront off East State Street, and came home smelling like copper and burnt insulation. My phone buzzed. It was my daughter Brooke, wanting to stop by Wednesday. After they get back. Get back from where? Oh, Madison, she wrote. Meeting Connor's family. I stared at that message a long time. I typed, "Am I coming with?" Her reply came fast. "No. Just Mom and Wesley. It's easier." Easier. I asked what that meant. 20 seconds later. "I don't want to be embarrassed, okay? Please don't make this a thing." Embarrassed. I sat at my kitchen table, fingers curled around a coffee mug, feeling that word burn itself into me. Now look, I'm not fancy. I'm a union electrician of almost 3 decades. Midwest born and raised. I work long weeks, I wear heavy boots, and I don't speak in soft meditation retreat tones like my ex-wife's new husband does. But I never thought I was something my own daughter needed to hide. I typed and deleted 4 different replies before settling on the simplest one. Got it. And that should have been the whole humiliation right there. My daughter quietly removing me from the narrative of her life because my presence didn't match the aesthetic of her fiancé's family. But life's never that tidy. Because the next morning, as I was sipping my first cup of coffee, there it was on Facebook. Brooke. Smiling in front of a fancy restaurant in Madison. Her hair done up. Her dress immaculate. Standing between my ex and her new husband, Wesley, the man she left me for. Caption. Family dinner with my parents before the big meeting tomorrow. So grateful for my amazing dad. Dad. She meant him. I didn't drop my phone. Didn't yell. Didn't throw anything. I just felt something inside me go very, very quiet. And then I did something no one expected, especially not her. Something that would make my daughter, my ex-wife, and her trust fund husband burst into my house the next morning demanding answers. Because by then, I had already made a decision. Brooke didn't text again that night. Didn't call. Didn't feel even a flicker of curiosity about whether the man she just emoted from father to biological inconvenience might have thoughts about it. But my brother Ricky did. He has the emotional radar of a bloodhound and the subtlety of a brick. Yo, he texted. You alive? You got that look in your post like someone stole your lunch money. I told him I'd call later. I didn't. I couldn't. I wasn't ready to say out loud what had just happened. Because up until that moment, I still believed Brooke and I were solid, even if not perfect. I'd been there for her entire life. Every child support payment, every birthday, every holiday schedule negotiated with lawyers glaring across a conference room table. I co-signed her first car. Helped cover her semester abroad when my ex-wife claimed she couldn't afford it. I sat in a hospital waiting room when she had emergency surgery and her mother and Wesley were unreachable. I'd shown up every time I was allowed to. And it turns out I was still the optional parent. The one you crop out of pictures. Later that night, long after I should have been asleep, I opened Facebook again. Because self-torture is free and extremely accessible. The picture was still there. Brooke beaming. Vivian, my ex-wife, looking like she just landed a role in a toothpaste commercial. Wesley, trust fund golden boy, standing with his hand on my daughter's shoulder like he'd earned the right. Caption. So grateful for my amazing dad. I whispered it out loud, testing the bitterness on my tongue. Dad? I didn't rage. Didn't sob. Didn't break anything. I just felt hollow. And that's the worst feeling, isn't it? Not pain. Not anger. Just the awareness that someone you love deeply has already walked out of the emotional room and you're the only one who hadn't noticed. So I texted Brooke. Since Wesley is your dad now, let him act like it. You're cut off. Then I powered off my phone. For the first time in years, I slept like a man who had finally stopped holding up the ceiling alone. But peace never lasts in my family. Because the next morning, around 8:30, I heard engines, plural, growling up my driveway. Not the familiar sputter of Brooke's little SUV, but something heavier, pricier, and profoundly irritated. I glanced through the window. Vivian's white Mercedes. Brooke's luxury SUV behind it. And Wesley stepping out in a cashmere coat that probably cost more than every appliance in my kitchen combined. 3 people. 2 cars. 0 patience. Not one of them bothered to knock. Brooke still had a key from when she used to spend weekends with me. And she used it. The door swung open. She marched in like a prosecutor preparing closing arguments, her mother and stepfather flanking her like backup dancers in a rage-fueled Broadway number. Dad, she snapped. We need to talk. I didn't stand up. Stayed seated at my kitchen table, sipping black coffee like it was armor. Do we? I asked. Vivian's lips curled. You're being dramatic. Brooke crossed her arms. You saw the post. Before you turn this into some huge thing. You called Wesley your dad, I said calmly. Publicly. Wesley stepped forward with that patronizing smile rich men use when speaking to people who work with their hands. Jace, he began. I understand your feeling. I held up a finger without looking at him. Please stop, I said. You don't get to narrate my emotions. He stopped. Vivian scowled. This is exactly the attitude Brooke was afraid of. Brooke shot me a look, irritated, defensive, utterly unfamiliar. This is why I didn't want you there, she said. You always take things personally. No, I said. I take fatherhood personally. Big difference. She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, don't make this about biology. Being a dad is more than DNA. You're right, I said. It's about showing up. For 26 years. Which I did. Nobody spoke. And in that silence, something inside me finally snapped into place, not broken, but aligned. I wasn't losing my daughter. I'd already lost the version of her I thought existed. And I was done pretending otherwise. Brooke didn't blink. Didn't flinch. She just stood there in my kitchen, the one I'd remodeled with my own 2 hands, looking at me like I was a pothole she'd hit on the way to somewhere more important. I don't know why you're acting like this, she said. All I did was ask you not to embarrass me. By existing? I asked. She exhaled dramatically. By being you? Connor's family is old money, Dad. They're traditional. They don't understand divorce drama. Mom told them you were basically out of the picture, okay? It was easier. Easier. There it was again, that same word she'd used in her text. The word that covers sins like a fresh coat of paint on a rotting wall. Wesley stepped in, clasping his hands like a therapist who bills $600 an hour. Jace, he said gently, the Hartleys have high standards. It's not personal. It's entirely personal, I said. He stopped mid-sentence, mouth still open. Vivian intervened, sharp as ever. They just needed a clean presentation. You wouldn't understand. Oh, I said. Aesthetics. Got it. Brooke crossed her arms. This is what I mean. This attitude. You take everything as an attack. That's because you attacked me, I said. You erase me. Silence. Real silence this time. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Then I asked the question I already knew the answer to. What did you tell Connor's parents about me? Brooke's jaw tightened. That you weren't involved much. Not involved, I repeated slowly. 26 years of showing up, and you told them I wasn't involved. It's not like that, she snapped. Mom said. No, I said. I want your answer. Not hers. She hesitated. Just for a second. Then said, It was simpler to say Wesley raised me. A calm washed over me. A strange, eerie calm. Like hearing a smoke alarm but noticing the fires on the other side of the house. Okay, I whispered. I understand. Brooke frowned, thrown off. Wait, what? I said I understand. And I did. Not her logic. Not her choices. But I understood who she was now. She wasn't my little girl anymore. She wasn't the teenager crying into my chest after a breakup. She wasn't the young woman calling me for help on I-90 in a blizzard. She was someone who could rewrite history for convenience. Someone who believed affection could be purchased with the right labels and the right photographs. Someone who valued presentation more than truth. Look, Brooke said, softening slightly. We just need to move past this. The wedding. Oh, I said. Right. The wedding. I stood up from the table. Vivian smirked like she'd won something. Wesley relaxed his shoulders. Brooke's expression shifted into hesitant relief. They thought they'd brought me to heel. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I walked over to the counter, picked up an envelope, and returned to the table. Here, I said, handing it to Brooke. This might clear a few things up. She opened it. One page. A banking statement. The account name, Brooke Hollis, Future Fund. The balance, $0. 00. Her face strained. Dad, what is this? That's the account I've been putting money into since you were 3. I said. College. Emergencies. Wedding. She swallowed hard. You drained it? No, I said. I closed it. Yesterday morning? The color rose in her cheeks, blotchy and furious. You had no right. Vivian shot to her feet. Jace, that money was for Brooke. It was, I agreed. When Brooke had a father. Wesley tried again. Come on, Jace. Be reasonable. I gave him a look so sharp he actually stepped back. Brooke slammed the envelope on the table. I need that money for the wedding. I shrugged. Ask your dad? The word landed like a grenade. She stared at me, horrified. You can't mean Wesley. You called him Dad, I said. Online. In front of the entire world. I'm just honoring your choice. Vivian sputtered. You are being vindictive. No, I said. I'm being consistent. Brooke's voice cracked, thin and ragged. You're going to regret this. Maybe. But not today. Maybe, I said. But I'll do it with my dignity intact. She stormed toward the door. Vivian followed. Wesley lingered, giving me a look he probably practiced in a mirror. Wealthy, wounded superiority. This isn't over, he warned. I grinned. It is for me. He left. And when the doors slammed behind them, my house went quiet again. But not the suffocating quiet of before. This was a different quiet. The quiet of a man who just walked out of a burning building and realized he wasn't the one who set the fire. The funny thing about dropping a metaphorical nuke on your family at 8:45 in the morning is that the silence afterward feels clean. Weirdly clean. Like someone finally opened a window in a house that's been sealed shut for years. I made another cup of coffee. Ate toast. Went out to the garage and organized my tool bench. Not because I was calm, but because I wasn't angry. And that, I think, is what scared them the most. Anger they could handle. Anger can be negotiated, manipulated, guilt-tripped. But calm? Calm means the decision's already been made. Around noon, my phone started buzzing again. Not calls. Not from Brooke or Vivian or Wesley. They were too busy performing victimhood somewhere in a group chat. The person calling was Ricky. He didn't wait for hello. Bro, tell me you didn't actually tell her to ask her dad. I put the phone on speaker and kept sorting my wrenches. I did. He let out a scream laugh so loud my neighbor's dog started barking. You're a legend. A menace. A folk hero. I need to sit down. You called me. I reminded him. Yeah, well, I wasn't emotionally prepared for this level of sibling excellence. Okay, serious question. How many times did Vivian say your full name? At least 3. Oh, she's pissed, he said happily. She only pulls out the full name when she's seconds from ascending into her final demon form. I grinned despite myself. But Ricky's tone shifted, still amused, but more grounded. Look, Jace, you good? Yeah, I said. For the first time in a long time. I finally said no. That's not just a no, brother. That's a multi-state federal level NO. He wasn't wrong. What I'd actually done was sever a cord I'd been dragging behind me since the divorce. A cord wrapped in guilt, obligation, and the fantasy that if I just kept showing up, Brooke would eventually see the truth. But you can't wake someone who benefits from pretending to be asleep. After we hung up, I went inside to grab lunch. I just opened the fridge when I heard a car pull into the driveway. I checked the window. Not the Mercedes. Not the luxury SUV. A Honda. Sensible. Clean. Unthreatening. And out stepped Connor, my daughter's fiancé. He walked up to my door alone, shoulders back, jaw tight, looking like a man preparing to cut a wire on a ticking bomb even though he knows he's not trained for this. I opened the door before he could knock. Mr. Hollis, he said carefully. Do you have a minute? I stepped aside to let him in. Sure. Coffee? No, thank you. He sat at my kitchen table, the same table where his future in-laws had ambushed me hours earlier, then folded his hands like a man bracing for the truth he already suspected. Sir, he began. Can I ask, is it true you closed the account for Brooke? Yes. He nodded slowly. And is it true that you were the one who paid for her car? And her semester abroad? Yes. And you were around growing up? Holidays, school events, hospital visits? Everything? All of it. He swallowed hard. Ma'am, I mean Mrs. Hartley, my mother, called me this morning. She said something wasn't adding up. Ah. There it was. The cracks. Brooke had built an entire identity on a foundation of curated narratives. Pretty stories. Instagram-friendly truths. But moneyed families like the Hartleys do not like inconsistencies in the paperwork. She told us. Connor continued. That Vivian and Brooke said you were distant. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. I needed to hear it from you. Because nothing in your behavior matches what they told me. I raised an eyebrow. What behavior have you seen? You didn't yell at me when I came in, he said. You didn't defend yourself aggressively. You didn't try to get me to take your side. You just told the truth. He hesitated. She doesn't do that, he said quietly. Not anymore. For the first time, I saw something crack behind his fiancé's smile exterior. Fear. Uncertainty. Grief, for the version of Brooke he thought he was marrying. He looked up. Mr. Hollis, what should I do? I leaned back, weighing my words carefully. I'm not going to tell you whether to marry my daughter, I said. That's your choice. But I will tell you this. He held his breath. You can build a marriage on love. You can build it on money. You can build it on shared goals. But you can't build it on a lie. Because lies don't stay small. They grow roots. He nodded, eyes stinging but steady. Thank you, he whispered. I needed to hear that. He stood to leave. Reached the door. Paused. Then turned back to me with a strange, almost dazed expression. You know, he said. When I told Brooke I was coming to talk to you, she said you'd embarrass me. And did I? I asked. He shook his head. No, he said. But she sure did. He left. And I sat alone in my kitchen again. But this time, the silence wasn't clean. It was heavy. Something had shifted. Something big. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that the fallout was only just beginning. Connor left my driveway with the gait of a man who had just realized his relationship wasn't on fire. It was a building fully engulfed in flames, and someone had quietly removed all the exits. I watched his Honda roll away, then closed my front door and let out a long exhale. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Just the weight of inevitability settling into place. I didn't have long to sit with it. At 4:12 p.m., my phone lit up with an incoming call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally I ignore unknown numbers. But something in my gut said answer. Hello? A crisp, polished voice replied. Mr. Hollis? This is Judith Hartley. Ah. The mother of the fiancé. The matriarch of the old money dynasty. The woman whose approval Brooke had sold her soul, and apparently my identity, for. Thank you for speaking with my son today, she said. He told me you were honest with him. I try to be, I said. Well, Judith continued, we have a discrepancy. Of course they did. Old money families hate emotional confusion the same way they hate unironed tablecloths. We were told, she said delicately, that you were largely absent in Brooke's upbringing. I know, I replied. And that Wesley, she continued, was the stable parental figure. I'm aware of that version of events too. There was a pause. Not an awkward one. A calculating one. Mr. Hollis, she said, I'd like to see you. In person. I stiffened. What for? To understand, she said. I don't appreciate being lied to. And I don't tolerate being manipulated. Not a woman to underestimate. Where and when? I asked. Tomorrow. 6 p.m. Our church conference room. Private, neutral, quiet. My eyebrows rose. A church. Classic old money power move, neutral ground with an audience of God as backup. Will the others be there? I asked. Yes, Judith said. All of them. Fantastic. A full cast reunion. After we hung up, I called Ricky. He answered on the first ring. Oh good, he said. I was hoping someone had made something worse. What's up? I told him. He whistled. Bro, you're having a summit meeting. This is geopolitical level drama. Should I bring popcorn? No. Should I bring a lawyer? No. Should I at least bring my phone so I can record the moment Vivian's soul leaves her body? No, Ricky. He sighed dramatically. Fine. Killed you. Then, more serious. You ready for this, man? I paused. Was I? Tomorrow I'd be sitting across from my daughter, my ex-wife, her husband, her future in-laws, and probably generations of bad decisions and buried resentments. But for the first time in years, I wasn't going there as the apologetic ex-husband, or the guilty part-time dad, or the man everyone assumed would roll over because conflict makes him look uncultured. I was going as a man who had receipts, paperwork, dates, amounts, photo evidence, legal records. 26 years of showing up documented in black and white. Yeah. I was ready. Yeah, I said to Ricky. I think I am. You want me there? No, I said. I need to do this alone. He grunted approval. Well, if you end up on the evening news, make sure you look good. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and sorted through the folder I'd prepared. Child support records. Medical bills. School photos. Field trip permission slips with my signature. Report cards I'd signed. The car loan cosign. Letters from her school addressed to me. graduation photos. And finally, the statement from the now empty savings account. I put them in order, slid them into the folder, and closed it. A quiet calm washed over me. Not peace. Peace is too passive. This was clarity. The next day came faster than I wanted. At 5:55 p.m., I stepped into the church conference room. Fluorescent lights. Folding chairs. A coffee urn that looked older than salvation itself. And they were all there. Brooke. Vivian. Wesley. Connor. Mr. and Mrs. Hartley. 6 pairs of eyes turning toward me at once. Judith gestured to an empty seat. Mr. Hollis, she said. Shall we begin? I took my seat. Set the folder down. And as I looked across the table at my daughter, her arms crossed, her face tight, her jaw set, I realized something. This wasn't going to be a fight. It was going to be a reckoning. Judith Hartley didn't waste time. The moment I sat down, she folded her hands over the table like a judge preparing to hear testimony. Thank you for coming, Mr. Hollis, she said. We're here because the version of events we were given, she glanced sharply at Brooke and Vivian, does not match the facts my son heard from you yesterday. Vivian shifted in her seat. Brooke stared at the table. Wesley adjusted his blazer sleeve, hoping someone would interpret the gesture as relevance. I opened my folder but didn't pull anything out yet. I'm not here to attack anyone, I said. But I won't let my history be rewritten. Not by anyone. Henry Hartley, who had been silent until now, spoke in a gravelly voice that suggested cigars, scotch, and 10,000 executive meetings. What we want, he said, is the truth. I nodded. Then here it is. I began laying documents on the table one by one, sliding each forward so everyone could see. Child support records, every payment, every month, never missed. School forms with my signature. Medical bills with my insurance listed. The emergency appendectomy receipt, the one Vivian had pretended Wesley handled. The co-signed car loan. Field trip slips. Pictures from birthdays, school plays, graduation. A timeline of fatherhood spread across a church table like evidence in the trial of my life. Judith leaned forward, adjusting her glasses. Henry's jaw tightened. Connor's eyes darted between me and Brooke. Vivian looked nauseous. Brooke? She went pale, like watching someone open a closet she never expected anyone to look inside. Finally, I placed down the last sheet. The statement from the savings account. 23 years of deposits. Balance now $0. 00. This, I said quietly, was the wedding fund. The emergency fund. The everything fund. I closed it the morning Brooke told me I wasn't her real father. You could hear a pin drop. Then Connor broke the silence. You told me, he said slowly, looking at Brooke, that your dad never helped financially. Brooke's voice cracked. I didn't mean, it wasn't like that. I stopped her with a calm hand gesture. Say what you mean, I said. For once. Her eyes flashed with that old teenage defiance, but it didn't hold. Not in this room. Not against the truth. Vivian jumped in, voice shaking. We only said you weren't emotionally present. Jace, you were always working. To pay for everything you insisted Brooke needed. I said. And because you took half my assets in the divorce. Wesley bristled. Hey now. Don't, I said without looking at him. Not this room. Not this conversation. Judith tapped the savings statement. Mrs. Stevens, is this true? Vivian opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. It's complicated, she managed. No, I said softly. It really isn't. Then came the moment, the one no parent wants but every parent recognizes when it arrives. Connor turned to my daughter, the woman he thought he knew. Brooke, he said, why did you lie? I wasn't lying, she snapped. I was simplifying. Judith's eyebrow arched like a guillotine blade. Dear, she said. A simplification is rounding 96. 4 to 96. A lie is removing an entire parent. Brooke's face crumpled. I didn't want them to think less of me. Connor shook his head. I don't think less of you because your parents divorced. I think less of you because you hid the truth. And because you hid him, Henry added, nodding toward me. Wesley suddenly stood. All right, that's enough. Brooke is an adult. She doesn't need to explain herself to the people she lied to? Henry said sharply. She absolutely does. Wesley froze. Vivian glared daggers at me, as if I had done this. As if my honesty had ruined her fantasy. Brooke finally looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. There was no rage now. No superiority. Just a raw, dawning realization that her narrative had collapsed in public. Dad, she whispered. I waited. Waited for an apology. Waited for accountability. Waited for something real. What I got was, you didn't have to show them all that. I exhaled slowly. There it was. Not regret. Not remorse. Just anger that the lie didn't hold. I met her eyes and said the line that sealed everything. You're mad I told the truth. I'm mad you told a lie. Only one of us is ashamed for the right reason. Brooke looked like she'd been hit. Vivian stood abruptly. We're leaving. Wesley followed her out. Brooke lingered, torn between blood and consequence. Connor didn't look at her. Judith didn't invite her to stay. Henry didn't move. And Brooke finally walked out too, leaving the door swinging open behind her. In the quiet that followed, Judith let out a long breath. Mr. Hollis, she said, I appreciate your candor. I'm certain it wasn't easy. No, I said. It wasn't. Henry nodded once. You're a good man. Connor finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm so sorry, sir. I looked at him and saw what he was really asking. What do I do now? You'll figure it out, I said gently. But whatever choice you make one that's honest. He nodded, eyes glassy. And as I gathered my folder, Judith stopped me with one more sentence. I'm glad we met you before the wedding. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because the truth had already done everything I came to do. The fallout didn't hit like thunder. It seeped, quiet, corrosive, undeniable. By the next morning, I'd already heard from Ricky. Bro, he said, sounding half awed, half delighted. The Hartleys are done. Like finished. They're pulling all funding for the wedding. Word is, Judith said, and I quote, I will not finance a marriage built on deceit. I sipped my coffee, staring at the sunlight creeping across my kitchen. Figures, I said. Oh, that's not the best part. Ricky continued. Vivian apparently had a meltdown so intense the country club staff had to ask her to lower her voice. Wesley tried to calm her down, but get this, he's the one they blamed for the misinformation. That actually made me snort. Why him? Because technically he benefited the most from erasing you. Judith made that connection in about 8 seconds. I leaned back in my chair, letting that sink in. The man who had been dressed up as Father of the Year was now the fall guy in a social scandal. Small blessings. And Brooke? I asked. Ricky went quiet for a moment. Connor hasn't talked to her since the meeting. I swallowed. He's breaking up with her? I don't know. But she moved back in with Vivian and Wesley last night. All her stuff's in their guest room now. I rubbed my jaw, absorbing that. Anything else? I asked. Ricky hesitated again. He only hesitates when the news is nuclear. Her wedding planner quit, he said. Quit? Yep. Apparently the Hartleys were footing the bill. When they pulled out, the planner called Brooke to ask how she wanted to adjust the budget. Brooke told her to figure it out. Planner said she doesn't do magic tricks. My eyes widened. Jesus. Oh, speaking of Jesus, Ricky said, suddenly sounding amused again. Connor's pastor is now involved. What? Yeah. The pastor called Brooke last night to express concern about the foundation of honesty in their relationship. And Brooke, told him it wasn't his business. That tracks. And then, Ricky finished, the pastor called Connor and told him to take some space. I closed my eyes. This wasn't just falling apart. This was collapse. That evening, as I was tightening a loose hinge on my front gate, a car pulled into my driveway. Not Vivian. Not Brooke. Not even Ricky. It was Connor. He stepped out slowly, like he wasn't sure he was welcome. His face looked older than it had last week. He walked toward me with the careful politeness of someone carrying a heavy truth. Mr. Hollis, he said. Can we talk? Sure. We sat on the tailgate of my truck again, my usual spot for hard conversations. I ended it, he said. Simple. Quiet. Final. I didn't pretend to be surprised. I didn't congratulate him. I didn't pity him. Are you okay? I asked. He laughed, a broken, bewildered sound. Not really. But I will be. He looked at his hands. You know, he said. When I proposed, I thought Brooke was complicated. Passionate. Strong-willed. I nodded. She is all of those things. Yes, he said. But I didn't realize she'd also inherited her mother's ability to rearrange reality to her liking. I didn't comment. It wasn't my place to trash my daughter to her ex-fiancé. He continued. What got me wasn't just the lie itself, it was how easy it was for her. How natural. Like rewriting the truth was just Tuesday. And when I confronted her, she said she did it because it made things smoother. I stared at the ground. Smoothness. Easiness. Convenience. The gods she worshipped. Connor's voice steadied. I don't want my life built on a story someone else is curating. Fair enough. We sat in silence for a long stretch. Wind in the trees. My neighbor cursing at his mower. The comfortable chaos of real life. Then Connor turned to me. You know what my mom said after the meeting? He asked. What? She said, if you want to know who a person truly is, watch who they erase. I let out a slow breath. That hit harder than I wanted it to. He stood, brushing off his pants. Thank you, sir. For being honest. And for not sugarcoating anything. It mattered. We shook hands. Good luck, son, I told him. He nodded, walked to his car, and drove off into the early dusk. Later that night, a soft ping from my phone. A text. From Brooke. Just 3 words. You ruined everything. I stared at it. Thought about the years. The birthdays. The hospital visits. The late-night panicked phone calls. The tuition help. The car loan. The quiet sacrifices. Then I typed back. No. I just stopped covering for the lies. Sent. Turned off the phone. Sat in the quiet. And for the first time in decades, the quiet didn't feel empty. It felt earned. The text from Brooke should have stung. It didn't. Not because I didn't care. I did. I still do. But something subtle had shifted, like a sensitive tooth finally going numb. You don't stop noticing it, you just stop reacting. The next morning, I was in my driveway changing the oil on my truck when I saw someone walking up the street toward me. Not a car. A person. A woman. Tall. Silver hair tied back. Elegant coat. Purpose in every step. Judith. Of course. The matriarch of the Hartley family did not do. Surprise. Every move she made looked premeditated. I stood, wiping my hands on a rag. Mrs. Hartley, I said. Everything okay? Yes, she said calmly. But something needed to be said, and I preferred to say things directly. She surveyed my driveway the way a general assesses a battlefield. Do you mind if we talk? I nodded and gestured toward the porch. She sat with perfect posture, spine straight, knees together, hands folded, like she'd been carved from marble. I owe you an apology, she began. That wasn't what I expected. For what? I asked. For believing a version of events that was convenient. She exhaled through her nose. I've been around a long time. I should have recognized manipulation sooner. You didn't have the full picture, I said. No, she agreed. But you know who did? Brooke. That landed hard. Judith continued, voice steady but not unkind. My son is heartbroken. But he will recover. He has a good head and a steady soul. Brooke. She paused, choosing her words with surgical precision. Brooke is not ready to be anyone's wife. She doesn't know who she is without controlling the story. I said nothing. I didn't trust my voice. Judith looked at me for a long, assessing moment. You did right by your daughter, she said. More than she will ever understand, at least right now. That's what fathers do, I replied. No, she corrected gently. That's what good fathers do. There was a difference. And we both knew it. After a moment, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. I raised an eyebrow. What's that? A copy, she said, of Connor's statement to the church about why the engagement ended. I didn't take it. I don't need to read that. It's not for your ego, she said. It's for clarity. Reluctantly, I accepted it. I should go, she said, standing. I'm sure this will not be the last development. But I wanted to look you in the eye and say that your integrity was not lost on me, nor on my husband. I walked her to her car. She paused before getting in, one hand on the door frame. Mr. Hollis, she said softly, you may not realize it yet, but you gave your daughter something she desperately needed. And what's that? A boundary. She closed the door, started the engine, and drove off. I stood in the driveway long after her taillights disappeared. Eventually, I opened the envelope. Connor's statement wasn't dramatic. It wasn't angry. It wasn't even bitter. It was honest. He wrote, I can rebuild a wedding. I cannot rebuild a life with someone who lies to the people she claims to love. Trust is not optional. It's the foundation. I folded the paper carefully. Not triumphantly. Not smugly. Just thoughtfully. Then I went inside and made coffee. For the rest of the day, I kept expecting a phone call, Brooke, Vivian, Wesley, somebody, but the house stayed quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that meant a storm was gathering. It came the next morning. At 7:04 a.m. A rapid, frantic pounding on my front door, so hard it rattled the frame. I sighed, already knowing exactly who it was. Brooke. Her eyes were red. Her hair a mess. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. She pushed past me into the house. We need to talk, she said, voice shaking. I closed the door behind her. Okay, I said. Then talk. She stood in the middle of my living room, breathing like she'd just run here from another state. What did you say to them? She demanded. What did you tell the Hartleys? The truth. That's not good enough. You ruined my engagement. No, I said quietly. Lying ruined your engagement. I just stopped being your cosigner. She flinched. Her shoulders rose. Fell. Rose again. And then she said something I didn't expect. Not an insult. Not a threat. Not a deflection. She whispered, Dad, I don't know who I am anymore. I froze. Because that wasn't manipulation. That was a crack in the armor. A real one. A painful one. The first honest thing she'd said to me in years. And it changed everything in the room. Brooke stood in my living room, arms wrapped around herself like she was holding pieces together. Dad, I don't know who I am anymore. For a moment, neither of us moved. This wasn't the confident, curated woman from Madison. This was the girl who used to sit on my shoulders at 4th of July parades. The teenager who cried in my truck after her first heartbreak. I gestured for her to sit. She did, slowly, like she wasn't sure the furniture would accept her. I didn't mean for everything to fall apart, she whispered. I know, I said. But you can't build a life on stories that aren't true. Eventually the truth catches up. Her eyes glossed. I thought if I made our family look cleaner, easier, people would approve of me. Approval built on lies isn't approval, I said. It's stage lighting. It looks good until the power goes out. She winced. Connor's gone, she whispered. I'm sorry, I said. And I meant it. Silence stretched between us, heavy, fragile. Dad, can we fix us? She finally asked. I breathed in, slow and steady. We can start, I said. But only if we're honest. No more rewriting history. No more erasing people because it's convenient. She nodded, tears slipping down. I'm scared, she said. So am I admitted. But that's how real things start. Brooke leaned forward, hesitating, then rested her head on my shoulder, the first time in years. Dad? She murmured. Yeah? I'm sorry. I closed my eyes, letting the words settle into a place they hadn't reached in a long time. Thank you, I said quietly. That's a good beginning. Outside, morning light finally broke through the clouds, soft, imperfect, real. Our relationship wasn't healed. Not even close. But for the first time in a long time, it wasn't a performance. It was the truth. And that was enough to start again.